Hello, and good morning to all joining us via Zoom and our Facebook live stream. Welcome to the Center for Enlightenment's exploration of the spiritual teachings, Jewels from Jane Elizabeth. Each Sunday will be a free-flowing adventure with teachings by Jane Elizabeth Hart, facilitated by certified Center for Enlightenment teachers. We will be working from the self-study lessons found on our website at cfenlightenment.org. Today, we continue the self-study lesson titled Observer Self. Our topic is using your observer self. Greg Barrett will be the facilitator for this lesson. He's a certified teacher for the Center for Enlightenment and longtime student of Jane Hart, studying with her for over 30 years. Jane is the author of Spiritual Power Tools, Support for Your Soul, master teacher and founder of the Center for Enlightenment. Today's course will be live streamed via Facebook. A recording will be sent out with the weekly reflection so you can access it anytime. For those new to this format, your chat icon is located at the bottom of your screen. Just click to view. If you have any technical questions, please reach out to the host or co-host via the chat room. In addition to the Sunday courses, there will be a question and answer discussion on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. A link for these sessions will also be posted in the chat room. If you're in need of prayer support, please contact us at cfenlightenment.org or just type centerforenlightenment.com. We are active on Facebook and Twitter. Come check us out and share your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. It would also be a great support to like the postings that resonate with you. We also invite you to visit our website at cfenlightenment.org. There you will find additional self-study lessons, talks, videos, or you can search for specific topics to support your expansion in consciousness. So let's just sit back and move as we move into the silence. Let's begin today's journey with the prescription for spiritual alignment.
Hello, and let's let this energy come in to our hearts and open us up to that wonderful presence that is always here, that right now we're becoming aware of it. We are aligned with the presence of God within. We are protected by God's love, wisdom, knowledge, and grace. The God consciousness within helps us discover more about who we are. Thank you, God, for the gift of spiritual intuition. Thank you, God, for aligning our conscious, subconscious, and superconscious mind. And we're just grateful. In this moment, thank you, Amen. Well, we continue our journey on the emotional healing that takes place using our observer self. And this emotional healing is really called dissolving the emotional pain within us. And it's not enough for us to just be aware of these patterns of emotions, these experiences of the lower self. We've got to move past just our awareness of them into actually dissolving these patterns of emotional pain. And Jane's going to talk to us at the end of this session in a video and tell us that it isn't about going into denial. It's not about pretending that these things aren't there. Instead, what we're doing here is taking charge of our emotions. We're taking charge over the dismantling of the emotion-backed thought forms that have been running us, not just in this lifetime, but for a long time before that. Jane calls this mastering your emotions. And on the journey of mastering, the emotions are probably the hardest thing for us to deal with. Mastering your emotions means that you don't let your emotions run you. Instead, you become aware of them, and by using your observer self, using the tools that we're going to share in this session, you can dismantle those emotional patterns that are limiting you. This unconscious energy, these reactions, drain us of our energy every day. These unconscious patterns get us off track. They get us out of alignment. They interfere And they're really a wearying experience for our personalities and souls. So when we recognize how much the emotional pain within us gets us into trouble, we realize that we don't want to take things personally anymore. Taking things personally is how we get hooked in to the emotions. We're going to have emotions. It isn't that we're going to transcend the experience of emotions, but instead, we're not going to take the emotions personally. We're not going to plug in or log into those emotions and identify with them. We're going to detach and disengage from those emotional reactions that automatically run us. In the video we're going to watch at the end, Jane talks about her experience of being a parent and how she could not become an effective parent to the extent that she was emotionally hooked into the drama of her kids. If her kids say, "Oh, I hate you, Mom," she found herself reacting. And then that's no way to talk to your mother. And she learned as she began to use these practices of journaling and the 7 steps and the cleansing of the emotional body, she began to learn that there's another way to do things. For us, this means that we detach from the drama by seeing everybody in our life as a soul in evolution, not a personality. Everybody in your life is there to teach you, to help you, to support you as a soul in evolution. And to the extent that you stop seeing people as personalities, whether they're your kids or your coworkers or your neighbors, and start seeing them as souls in evolution, you can experience your emotions in a very different way. With my kids, I realized as I took them up the 7 steps repeatedly and continued to journal out my feelings, I realized that they were souls evolving with their own agenda. And although I had a role as a parent in their life, it wasn't for me to control them. And that is true for the significant people in my life right now. I find it so easy to fall into codependency or feeling like I have to take responsibility for the feelings of the people around me, or to fix them or to make them right. Or on the other hand, to defend myself from them, to protect myself, to put up a wall around my heart. These two extremes of codependent enabling and defensiveness are both ways that we get emotionally hooked in to these patterns that we've got to use our observer selves to clear out and to dismantle. But the first step in this process is to learn how to identify your emotions. For me, it's just taking time periodically during the day. When I'm uncomfortable or when there's a lull in the day, just ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And just let that feeling rise. Just be aware of it. It's sadness or it's anger, it's fear. It could be any number of combinations, grief or resistance or resentment. All of these things are the different kinds of emotions that are generated by the emotional body and which run in the background of our day. And when we make this first step, we can get in touch with what's deeper within us, what's really running us. In the Spiritual Power Tool book, there are 5 questions in the journaling chapter. And if you don't have this book, you can download it on the website. But in the journaling chapter, these 5 questions start off with, what are you feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? And the second question is, what's going on right now? What am I thinking? What am I experiencing that's causing these feelings? And the third one is, how is this a repeating pattern in my life? And the fourth one is, what is my soul showing me or telling me right now? And the last one is, if my soul was running things, not my ego, how would I handle this differently? And I find by going through these 5 questions and journaling them out, sometimes I'm in my car, so I just am aware of them. I bring them to my awareness. Writing helps get a little deeper, but just being aware of it when I'm not able to write about it really helps me to clear out and dismantle those emotions. And when I was a parent, I found that was so helpful so that I wouldn't react as much, so that I would respond from a place of strength and love, of mutual support. You've had some practice over the past week, at least, observing yourself, becoming aware of what it is you're feeling, becoming aware of what's going on internally. So take the next step of every day journaling at least a little bit and keeping it simple. Don't make it a big uh, burden to your soul. That's one of the reasons why people don't journal, is that they make such a big deal out of it that they feel intimidated by it. Just make it a natural part of your life. You know, when I was in my youth, I didn't floss. And then the dentist told me I was going to have to, I was probably going to lose my teeth if I didn't watch myself. And I had to get treatments. So I thought I didn't have time to floss. And then I just made it a natural part of my day, and it was no big deal. And I kept my teeth. Emotionally, your flossing is doing your journaling, asking yourself the question, what am I feeling? What's going on with me right now that's causing me to feel this way? And the rest of the questions, what's a pattern in my life? How is this a pattern? What's my soul telling me? And if my soul were running things, not my ego, how would I handle it differently? And what you find out is that by writing these things down, you really get down to the real thing that's going on. And sometimes you need to go even deeper and use the 7-step method, which is also found in the book. But every day, you can take just a little bit of time, maybe just 5 minutes, to do a little journaling and find out, take your temperature within, find out what's going on with you. You have been so many different eyes, so many different personalities in so many lifetimes. And these emotions often come from those subpersonalities, those many egos from those different lifetimes that surface to get their needs met. And I know that's an advanced teaching, but it's the truth. So I'm going to share it here. You may have had a life as a courtesan or a priest or a warrior or a pirate or a farmer. And these subpersonalities you carried with you in your subconscious into this lifetime. And they show up as those inexplicable emotions that surface in your awareness. They show up as those baffling reactions that you have. And you think that it's you who is responding, but it's actually often another aspect of your being that you're not aware of, an aspect of your being that you know not of. I found that I would be in relationships and not know why I was reacting the way I did. And then when I did my journaling work, I began to find out that perhaps there was guilt from another lifetime for things that I did or left undone. Perhaps I was experiencing fear or resistance based upon maybe I had a hurt experience or was afraid they're going to retaliate to me. Sometimes I found myself experiencing anger. Now, you might not remember those former lifetimes, but that's not necessary. If it comes up, it comes up. If it's necessary, you will be aware of it. But instead, at least be aware that you have these past lives within you. And the inexplicable emotions that come up and the reactions that happen that sometimes just are baffling, often, in fact, they almost always are coming from something hidden in your subconscious mind. And the truth is that the other people in your life are responding as well from the very same and similar emotions, the same patterns of thinking and feeling within their unconscious minds. Well, this puts us in some very difficult and precarious situations. These are those situations of emotions, and emotions are messy because they're not rational. Emotions have a reasoning, have a consciousness of their own, and they play themselves out because emotions are an energy. Jane says in her video at the end of this class, emotions are an energy. And those emotions that come up and surface every day have an awareness and a mind of their own. They have their own volition. They have their own internal motivation. And the reason why is because you carried incomplete karmic experiences, and yes, I'm using that word karma, into this lifetime to be completed, to be healed, to be forgiven. And each of these parts of yourself have their own strong vibration, their own energy that's rooted in past experiences and decisions. And you can use your observer self by journaling out what you're feeling to get at the root. Not necessarily to remember that past life, but to get at the root belief and the deeper awareness that's coming up. These things are consciously stored in your spiritual iceberg. And in the Spiritual Power Tools book, there's this wonderful picture that Jane saw years ago, and then she went out and bought a big poster of it. And it's called My Consciousness is Like an Iceberg. 1/10 conscious, 9/10 subconscious. And there's the prayer for spiritual alignment right here. Thank you, God, for aligning my conscious, subconscious, and superconscious minds. And what you find is deep down in this hidden part that you can't see, this part has those past lives. It also includes things from this lifetime that you don't remember, that sometimes are buried in your awareness. I remember I would react when I was single. If I had this strange pattern in my life, if I was dating a woman, all of a sudden she'd start smoking, and I would react terribly. I was so angry. I would be so offended, and I wasn't aware of what was going on. And this repeated itself over and over again. I thought it was the weirdest thing until finally I asked for it to be revealed. And I saw a picture of my mom hiding cigarettes when I was a child and then lying to the family about it. And my mom, that's the only time that I remember her lying when I was a child. And I was felt so betrayed that I would react from that, not past life memory, but that memory from the past in this life. Well, the same thing is true for past life memories. For instance, I do not like hot water at all. I cannot take a hot bath. And then I had a memory of a lifetime in which I boiled to death, and I had a lot of emotion around that. So now that I've worked on that, it's not such a big deal. And there are many other things in your life. I've known people who were afraid of heights or afraid of deep water. And these are emotions that are stored in the subconscious based upon a drowning experience or a falling experience. These things have their own vibration, their own energy, and they are subconsciously stored in the iceberg within you. And then when you find that you respond unconsciously from these unconscious motivations, you give other people your negative energy or your positive energy, because you have positive emotions also stored in your iceberg. So you meet somebody and you just can't get enough of them. You just love talking to them. It's so easy, it's so light, it's so natural. And perhaps that's because of, in fact, definitely, in every case, it's because of what's stored in your subconscious in a positive chunk. But here we're talking about the negatives. And when your iceberg comes along, minding its own business, and then crunches up against the iceberg of another person and their subconscious material about you, you find out what you need to dismantle in that iceberg. And you do that with your journaling. You do that with your observer self. This iceberg is made up of emotional baggage. And as we dissolve our emotional baggage, we are dismantling our emotional body. That emotional body, which is contained within the iceberg of our subconscious, can help us or it can hurt us. It can lift us up or it can tear us down. And what happens when we do our emotional healing and our forgiveness work, because truly the soul helps us to forgive as we do our journaling, you find out that you're able to understand things better. You find a better way of handling things. And then you can use your emotional body and its energy more wisely, not reacting so much. Jane in her video talks about her experience, and she's gone into greater detail with her students about it privately, but it was when she was working at IBM and she had a terrible, uh, seemingly terrible supervisor. And this woman would make her cringe, and she talks about it in the video we're going to watch. But she journaled out her feelings and did the forgiveness work on this other woman and herself. And she was able to love that woman and have a wonderful experience of her, not trying to get her to change, but instead changing her internal reactions, taking responsibility for her own emotional body, and no longer being detached or being attached or engaged or entangled with these emotions that she had within her subconscious mind. I've shared before about the time I was dealing with a man who would just be so domineering and so brutal. And I asked, why am I dealing with this brutal man, this brutal ego? And what I journaled out was so you can get rid of your brutal ego, your big ego. And I find this as I go out and I speak to different groups, I deal with different personalities, not all of whom react to me the way I would like them to. And sometimes people try to control you. And I find out that I've got a controller in me that I need to journal out and forgive when I react to other people trying to control me. You don't have to be a doormat. You don't have to be a victim. I'm not saying that you can't take steps to take care of yourself, but you're not reacting from the unconscious or subconscious impulses of your emotional pain. Instead, using your observer self, you have a formula that will help you. Jane says, I have a formula that will help me. I realized that when I forgave this woman who was dominating me. And you have a formula that will help you. It'll help you to move out of the opposites, the good and the bad, the happy and the sad. It'll help you to detach and disengage and disentangle from all of this drama that is stored within your emotional body. The word that we use for this process is forgiveness. And forgiveness is getting our inner house in order so that we can progress spiritually. And Jane says that we're on a journey into the fourth dimensional soul consciousness. But, quote, I can't take all this crap with me into that new awareness. You can't take all that stuff with you. One question to ask yourself in your observer self is, am I taking things personally here? When this person acts this way, am I taking it personally? Or am I observing it and using these circumstances and these people to help me to discover what makes up my own subconscious mind, my own emotions, and dismantling them? In our prescription for spiritual alignment, we say, thank you, God, for aligning my conscious, subconscious, and superconscious mind. And this alignment is only possible when these negative emotions are dismantled and dissolved one by one within your subconscious iceberg. Eventually, you find yourself unplugging from all the negative stuff and stimuli that are there in your life and becoming aware of a greater sense of freedom. Last week, I shared that it's trading in your Velcro for Teflon. You're no longer personally run by what you personally want and demand from your subconscious mind. There's some things in your life that make you happy, other things make you sad. Some things make you angry, some things make you afraid. And the reason why they make you afraid is because of something in your own subconscious mind. When you take charge of it, you no longer have to go from one side of the opposites to the other, a victim of the whims of the opposites. Neither one of these sides, the ups or the downs, the positives or the negatives, will ever help you to feel okay for very long. But inside you, there is really something that's like a rock solid core of feeling, of well-being. And you can take charge of your emotions by journaling about them and getting yourself free from these emotional pulls. And you can even go deeper and use the 7-step method, which is also found on the website. It's also found in Spiritual Power Tools. And you can journal out your feelings and then take the people, places, and things, including yourself, up the 7 steps. And ask yourself questions when people are interacting. Things like, what's this person showing me right now about myself? What are they telling me and what do they really need? And one of the best things to do is to give that part of you that's reacting a nickname. Have you ever thought of doing that? I used to call this one Little Greggy. Little Greggy is acting out. Jane talked about Little Miss Jane, the teenager, or Lizzie, the little girl. And she would ask herself, what's going on with this part of myself? What's going on in me right now? Who is this? Is this my not okay little kid? Or is this my spiritual self? Your spiritual self, which is your higher self, will observe that little kid and straighten out your emotional body and help you to take charge of your emotions. And then you find yourself standing above in the higher dimension of yourself, looking down on the lower dimension of yourself and looking down on the scene that you can really see from up there in that higher dimension. You can see things with greater objectivity and a bit of distance from your observer self. What happens when you stay down below in your lower self is that you're only stuck there. It keeps you stuck in what Jane calls the sticky gluey of your third dimensional ego mind. But you are the only one who's going to get yourself unstuck from your emotional body. And you do this by being in your observer self, your active observer all day, every day. This means waking up in the morning and saying, I need some help here. Help me to really see what's going on here. Help me to be in my observer self today. Activate and shine a light. And do that in a little prayer, a little awareness, a little affirmation as you're getting out of bed in the morning. So this observer self is your spiritual self. It is your higher self, the Christ in you, your Buddha nature, Atman, the higher awareness within you, your infinite self. And this observer self, just becoming aware of what you're feeling during the day, actually activates your fourth dimensional consciousness, your soul awareness. And it gets you out of the entanglements of the emotions of this personal mind, this moment of drama, and it moves you into a greater awareness of who you really are. And I want to give a shout out to the 7 steps. At least once a week, I take someone or something up the 7 steps. And this is a great power tool when you find out that just doing your simple journaling questions doesn't quite get to the bottom of it. You can take old attachments up the 7 steps, old relationships, jobs, grief, resentment. And Jane talks in the video about taking her house, her car. She said, I couldn't get a new car until I let go of my old. I couldn't get a new house until I let go of my old. And my first time I ever took anything up the 7 steps was a condo that could not sell. And there was 48 hours or so. And I had to sell it or I was going to be in big financial trouble because I'd already bought another house and never even got one showing. And Jane had just taught me the 7 steps. And after using the 7 steps the very first time, got one phone call, one buyer, was able to be free because my attachments that were keeping me bound to that object, that condo, those attachments were dissolved. I had dissolved the emotional ties that I had to it. I dismantled that part of my emotional body. That happened here in the condo I'm renting right now. I was told that I had to move out. And so I took this place up the 7 steps, and my landlord changed his mind and said I could stay. It wouldn't matter either way because whatever was going to come up next, I knew was for my highest good. Because when you let go of those old emotional attachments, you get into the flow, and your life actually flows in new and beneficial directions. This is a process, this 7-step process, that you can practice and learn and make a part of your life. And journaling your journal questions, using your observer self and asking yourself periodically during the day, what am I feeling? All of these things can help you dissolve your emotional patterns using your observer self. And it is an inside job. I'm going to suggest that you also take a look at the chapter that is in the Spiritual Power Tools book on dissolving your emotional pain. And it's really for the more advanced student who's been doing some meditation, stabilizing their thoughts, clearing out their subconscious minds, but then you become aware that you have to take responsibility for building and protecting and guarding the bridge to your higher self. And you're more vigilant in dismantling your destructive emotions. And what are some of these destructive emotions? Well, they include such things as resentment and self-pity, anger and jealousy, depression, guilt, shame. All of these things surface during the day. And there's a bridge between you and your higher self that you've got to guard and protect. And although you may feel the emotional pain quite strongly, you can also remain detached from that discomfort by identifying the emotional reactions that you're having and realizing what is causing you to react that way. So, identifying, that's the first thing, asking what's going on? What's the emotion that I'm feeling right now? And that's a way to take responsibility for the internal reactions that you're having and any of your external behaviors that come out of it. You no longer act out as automatically. And then you forgive yourself using your journaling for this emotional pattern. If you continue to criticize yourself, you'll find that you'll stall and inhibit your healing. You'll keep yourself stuck. So, forgiveness, being gentle with yourself, and reminding yourself that your soul is capable of overcoming this and any other negative pattern in your subconscious mind. So you can release this emotional energy by journaling it, using the 7 steps, and just plain knowing that you are releasing this and trusting that healing is taking place within you. You are evolving spiritually and growing at a record pace in your soul right now. And as a result, you are finding these emotions surfacing more and more. And you cannot move forward on your spiritual journey if you're denying or resisting, repressing, or avoiding these emotions. Realize that your soul is sending you signals every day to help understand yourself on a deeper level. And that means people, places, and things that push your buttons. And instead of trying to put up a wall against these things, consciously participate in dissolving your emotional pain and gain power over some of these old wounds. Developing your observer self is the process in which you're focusing your consciousness in the now moment. So the observer self is your higher self, it's your spiritual self, but it's also your gateway to the now. It's where you can remove yourself and detach from the present emotional and physical activity and instead take stock of your thinking and become aware of what you're seeing and the deeper meaning behind your reactions in these activities. Jane often says that we should see ourselves as an actor in the play, and the observer self is the director that watches that play. And you can see yourself as the actor and become curious about making changes. What this does is it puts you in charge of your spiritual adventure. You understand the value of your observer self. And this is a way to detach. We often say you should be more detached. Well, one way to be detached is to be the director of your play. Then you're not run so much by your emotions. Jane calls the emotions that go from the positive to the negative, from the happy to the sad, as the yo-yo effect. And you don't have to be run by your yo-yos before they get out of control. Instead, you can take this action and regain your power over your being. This observer self is a real part of you. It belongs to you. And as you own it, you realize that it's taking care of you and watching over you. It's helping you to understand who you are. It's helping you to evaluate what you're doing, how you're behaving, and how you're doing it. And it contains many possibilities that will help you to better understand yourself and your behavior. And through using your observer self, you are in the process of mastering your emotions. You're not going to be running around on automatic all the time so much. It's like sometimes we're running around from one thing to the next. Jane says it's like being a squirrel on a squirrel wheel. Instead, you find yourself able to gradually separate from these automatic patterns and realize that you are in your higher self when you are in your observer self. Well, we're going to watch this video together, and I'm going to invite you to take the next few minutes and just become aware of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and let yourself receive these teachings that Jane is going to share with us right now about your observer self.
Well, hi, here we are, Spiritual Power Tool Month. Yes, I'm celebrating 10 years. And I mentioned that I would go forth and talk to you about dissolving your emotional pain. And that was a very important part about the journey that I was on and your journey that you're on. How to dissolve those emotions and master them. And that is the thing, to be able to master your emotions and not have your emotions run you. Because emotions can run us right to the ground. We can end up responding in an emotional way to something that we should not be responding to in an emotional way. And it's not really in the best interest of that, or I guess it's making me think as I said that to you about with children, and particularly with children, I found myself responding to them emotionally. When they get upset with me, they would say, "I hate you, Mom. I wish you weren't my mom." And I used to, way back then, just to, that's not the way to speak to your mother. And I soon learned to say, "Oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I still love you very much." It was a much better way of handling that emotion than what I did with my first child that I didn't understand that with. I would say, "It's no way to talk to your father, no way to talk to your mother, go to your room." That doesn't help them, and it sure didn't help me. I just mentioned that to you because I kind of remembered one of the things that I responded to and had to really look at the way I responded to my children. And that, of course, was interesting, to say the least. I had these wonderful children that I had to do something with. And I had to look at them not as not as my children, but as souls. Because looking at them as children was one way of looking at them, but another whole different way was souls evolving. My children were souls evolving. They just happened to come with me so that I could help them evolve as a soul and support them. So, as I just mentioned about how I handled my daughter when she told me how she hated me, that I learned to identify my emotions, not only with my children, but with my spouse, with my friends, and with all the different things that made me feel emotionally. And I acted out of emotions, not out of logic or the right thing to do. So now that you are an expert in observing yourself and you observe your emotional state, journal about it. Write it down. And this will continue throughout your whole many years that you'll be on the spiritual journey, because you have been many different eyes through, and I mean the little I with a period over it. You have had other egos in other lifetimes, and your emotions have been part of those different lifetimes too. And we have a pattern of how we found out from other lifetimes to how to respond emotionally to what is going on in our life. But we have to take a responsibility for our emotions rather than, as I mentioned, let them take responsibility and put us in very difficult situations that later we have to figure out ways of getting out of. Emotions is an energy, and it has a lot of power to it. It has a lot of vibration to it, and it affects the other person as well as yourself. So when you respond emotionally to another person, you are giving them your energy, your positive or negative energy. And they are going to respond to you according to your emotional will hit their emotional baggage. So we all have emotional baggage that we have to dismantle. And I'm going to use the word dismantle because, quite frankly, this is what you're going to do. As you move into another dimension of being, you're going to dismantle your emotional body, because your emotional body has the vibration and energy and the power to hurt or to support. And because you have that power, you have to learn how to use it wisely. And once you start to journal your feelings about things, it will help you to understand a better way to handle things, be it your boss, be it your other people that work with you. I can remember being at a job and not liking another person in the office and just cringe when they come by my desk. And I had to journal about that. Why is it that I cringe every time so-and-so comes by my desk? Why do I feel appalled? And then I journaled about it. And then I realized that they were pushing something within me. Maybe I wasn't doing something I should be doing, and I was afraid they're going to catch me at it, or that I had hostility that I needed to look at, and I needed to release that energy. That helped me a great deal. And then I ended up forgiving that person that I was so pissed off at, that I was working with, and releasing them. And guess what happened? They didn't bother me anymore. And boy, when that happened, I thought, oh, wow, I've got a formula. I have a formula that's going to help me. Because what I want to do is move out of the third, where everything is the opposites. There is the good and the bad. There is the fun and the sad. And there is the forgiveness and non-forgiveness. And if I am going to move into a new state of beingness, I can't take this crap with me. And I started to look at it as a bunch of crappy thoughts and ideas and visions. I didn't know at all what was going on in that other person's head. They probably weren't even paying any attention to me, didn't know I existed. I put the whole trip on them. And it was really wonderful to be able to understand that it was my projection, not theirs. As I was working with my emotional body, so to speak, I began to know and understand more about what made up my own personal emotional feelings. certain things made me very happy. And if those things weren't happening in my life, I was very sad. And then I was depressed. And then when I got what I wanted, I was happy again. And yet, I was just going from one side of the opposites to the other. And neither one of them were really helping me. I needed to take charge of my emotions. And I found it difficult until I started journaling about them, taking them up the 7 steps, making new affirmations, stop before speaking, be a good listener. Listen, what is that person really telling me? Don't get into your emotions, Miss Jane. I used to talk to myself all the time. I called myself Miss Jane a lot, or I called myself Lizzie. My brother used to call me Lizzie when he wanted to tease me. And so I would call myself Lizzie and say, okay, Lizzie, what's going on with you right now? Lizzie the little girl? Miss Jane, the teenager? What's going on? Who's present right now? My not okay little girl, or my spiritual person that is looking at my little girl and straightening out her emotional body? That's what we do. We stand on the mountain, so to speak, on the higher dimension looking at the lower. That's really what you're doing. You are standing on a higher position. It's like a ladder. You stand at the top of the ladder and everything looks different from the top of the ladder than it is when you're at the bottom of the ladder. You can look at what's going on and you can see a lot more from the top than you can the bottom. You're just caught in the bottom and can only see so much. But at the top of the ladder, you can look at the whole thing and make much wiser decisions. And once I realized I want to stand at the top of my ladder and look at what's going on from that point of view, that vantage point, rather than being on the bottom run, trying to figure out what to do, that's not going to help me at all, because it's only going to keep me stuck. And if I am the only one that's going to unstuck me, then I need to be on top of the ladder and not on the bottom run. So, see yourself on top of the ladder, looking at your emotional body and being the observer of it. Because we've talked a lot about that observer, and I continue to talk about it because it's such an important part of spiritual growth, not getting entangled in the emotions of the moment. And of course, if you look at the 7 steps, and it's in the book here, it's going to help you a lot. And most of you that are following this have and are familiar with the 7 steps. Your best friend, over and over again, it's my best friend. I used the 7 steps just recently. I mean, look at 45 years. I just used it recently to release my home in Winter Park and move to Tarpon Springs, Florida. I had to let go of that beautiful house that I was living in Winter Park. It was 2-story. It was spacious. It was a lovely place, and I loved it. But I had to let go of it. And I knew I was not going to find a new house till I let go of the old. And so one of the first things I did before I came to look for another house is to let that one go and bless it for all the joy it gave me, and then move on. That was just a couple of months ago. I've been in Tarpon Springs here maybe 2.5, 3 months. So as you can see, it was an important step. And I know that this always works. I had to let go of my old car, which I love so dearly, to get a new car in December. This works. It works. It works. What it does is clear it out for you. So use the 7 steps emotionally. Emotionally, I loved my house. I emotionally loved it, and it was okay to love that house. But it was also okay for me to let that house go, because I would never find anything as beautiful as I had thought that house was if I didn't let go of what that was for something better and more in line of where I am today. So, right now I'm in Tarpon Springs talking to you. I have a swimming pool, which I love, filled with beautiful flowers around the swimming pool. I have a beautiful new home, and I love it, love it, love it. And someday, yes indeed, I'm going to have to take it up the 7 steps, release it, for whatever is going to happen next for me. It's a process. Learn it. And we can talk about that the next time I do a video for you. We will again talk about it. But today we're talking about your emotional patterns and how to dissolve them. Only you're going to dissolve it. No one else is. Sorry about that. Wish I could help. I can help this way. I can tell you how to do it, what you need to do when it comes up, and support you lovingly to do that which is yours to do. So, thank you so much for being a part of my life. And I'm so grateful that you are here with me, moving, shaking, and going forward. Bye-bye for now.
And so we're going forth into our week with our observer self, knowing that our observer self is the key to dissolving emotional pain. And when we use our observer self, what we're really doing is dismantling and examining any negative emotion that we might find there, any of these patterns of emotion, and journaling in order to use that observer self to take charge of those emotions. And this is going to be an exciting week of experimenting with our observer self. So every morning, ask for your observer self to be strengthened, and take the lessons of this week, bring them to the Thursday night support group. Our question and answer support group is at 7 p.m. Eastern, and the link is in your chat room. It's also found online at the website. And that's where like-minded souls can get together and support each other in taking these spiritual steps, and ask questions, listen. You don't have to participate out loud, or you can get involved, whatever you want to do, because it's a great pattern, or a great way of supporting other souls and getting support for yourself. We also have donations. The link is in your chat room and on the website. And this is how you can support the Center for Enlightenment as we continue to do this spiritual work. Well, this is the week for the observer self. So I'm eagerly anticipating hearing from you on Thursday night and seeing what's going on with you. And until then, or until next Sunday, bye for now.